As we talk about learning to trust God this week, it's often easy to trust God when we're healthy, when everything's going well in our life and our circles of relationship. The greater challenge is often learning to trust God in tough times. Perhaps not surprisingly, there are a number of Psalms that talk about learning to trust God. We actually read more about trusting God in the book of Psalms than in any other book in the entire Bible. Psalm 56 is a great example, and I encourage you to read the entire psalm. It's only 13 verses. And in your Bible, some psalms have what's called a superscription. It's like a little title or context that occurs after the number. And the context for Psalm 56 is it says that it's a psalm of David when the Philistines seized him in Gath. So think about this, if you will. This is like a psalm of a prisoner of war. That kind of puts a different context on it, doesn't it? It helps you to frame it. And it's a psalm where the word trust is mentioned several times. And in verses 10 and 11, David says, "In God, whose word I praise, in the Lord, whose word I praise." And then verse 11, "In God I trust. I am not afraid. What can a mere mortal do to me?" That's your verse for today. "In God I trust. I am not afraid. What can a mere mortal do to me?" And understanding that David is not saying this from the safety of his own home, but that this is a psalm that came to him when he was a prisoner of the Philistines, makes his statement about not being afraid of anything or anybody, or not being afraid of what the Philistines can do to him, which includes taking his life. Really says something about trust. And if you look at more of the psalm, like back in verse 8, for example, he says, "You have kept count of my tossings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your record?" And think about David, captured, trying to sleep at night, not sleeping well. Some of us can relate to that. Who among us hasn't had some sleepless nights where we were tossing and turning in bed because of things we were afraid of, situations that were stressing us out, things that we were worried or concerned about? And I encourage you, when you have those moments, to turn to a psalm like Psalm 56 that reminds us that when I'm afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust. I am not afraid. What can flesh do to me, as it says in verse 4? The next time you find yourself feeling frightened, afraid, or anxious, take a step back, take a deep breath, and if you can, turn to a psalm like Psalm 56 and remind yourself, I trust in God. There's no need to fear.